Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. My name is Kathy Roberts with Amplify. We're really glad to have you here today, especially at the end of the school year. I know you're going crazy, so we appreciate you taking 30 minutes out of your busy schedule to hear about Lectura, MCLASS Lectura. Before we get started, just a couple things. If you have any questions during the webinar, if you'll locate that Q&A icon down at the bottom of your screen, and just put your questions in there. We've got folks behind the scenes that will be watching that. And we'll answer as many questions as we can during the live event. 30 minutes is not that much time. So if we don't get your question answered during the event, don't worry. We will get right back with you via email with the answer to your question. So you can just pop those in there. I will also be sending out an email in about 24 hours that will have a recording of the webinar. It'll also have a great FAQ document that tells you lots of things about Lectura that we can't get into today in our short time together. And then, and so that will be coming, the recording and the FAQ will be coming via email. So just to remind you, questions go in the Q&A. We're glad you're here. Before I turn things over to Roberta, we want to just find out a little bit about you and see who we have here. I'm going to launch a poll here. Let's see if I can get it to pull up here. Roberta, can you confirm that you can see the poll there?
I can.
Okay, great. If you guys wouldn't mind, just click on the correct answer or the one that applies to you. There's no right or wrong answer. Which of the following are you currently using in your district? Are you using both MCLASS and EDAL? Are you using just one or the other? Or are you using neither at this time? It'll just give us an idea of who's here. So it looks like we've got a couple more people putting in answers here, Roberta, and then I'll share those results in just a second.
All right.
Got a couple more folks jumping on too. So we'll give it just another minute here. If you just joined, if you don't mind answering that poll question, that would be fabulous. Okay. Looks like we've got about 75% of the folks that have answered. Let's go ahead and take a look at the results. So can you see those results, Roberta?
Yes.
Okay, we've got 67% of the folks are already using MCLASS and EDAL. So that's great. We've got a couple folks that are using neither. So this really is going to be just a general overview. Of course, in 30 minutes, we can't get into all the bits and pieces, but this will be a good overview and we'll be happy to come to your school if you'd like us to do a presentation for your school, your district, or whatever as a follow-up. When you get that follow-up email, you can answer back in that email if you have any additional questions that you didn't think of today, and we'll get right back to you. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Roberta Jacobson. Take it away, Roberta.
Thank you, Kathy. Welcome everybody. Bienvenidos y feliz 5 de Mayo. I'm Roberta Jacobson and I'm with Amplify, of course. And I'm so excited to be with you today to talk about our MCLASS Lectura and how it's going to support that successful literacy development for your students. So, as we know that Spanish-speaking students population is growing, it is actually 3/4 of the students, which is 7.6% of our population, which equals 3.8 million students speak Spanish as their first language. And we know those children bring many assets to the table. They have an incredible background of some level of bilingualism, depending on what's happening at their own homes. These students also, their home language is the foundation for their English development because Spanish and English have many connections, and there is evidence for cross-linguistic transfer of skills from Spanish and English. And of course, they also bring the assets of heritage and culture. And so from research, we know that bilingualism can improve the cognitive skills and give students an academic advantage in other subject areas. And of course, it can help them in their future job markets. But despite all the strong and rich foundation and the opportunity it offers that they bring to the table, Our nation continues to struggle in serving these populations. One area where we struggle the most is on how we have been assessing our Spanish-speaking students' skills. In 2019, a study out of the University of Oregon, some researchers worked with native Spanish-speaking pre-K students who assessed their phonological awareness skills. And when these students were assessed in English, this resulted in 63% being identified as needing Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention. 63%. That's a significant number. But that number dropped significantly when they were assessed in Spanish. It dropped to 21%, which seemed to make obvious sense. As Lillian Duran from the University of Oregon explained, it was the cognitive load of hearing an unfamiliar word that made it harder for these children to identify that initial sound. And so teachers have been asking for the right medicine to help their Spanish-speaking students to develop their skills. And so after our research, this is what we've come up with. Teachers have been asking for that parity with English solutions, those instructional tools, that skill coverage. They also want the content and word choice to be more culturally responsive. They want research-backed measures that are based on how literacy develops in Spanish. They wish for a unified representation of their students' biliteracy skills as well. So in a nutshell, teachers want to look at student development across Spanish and English to understand their students' needs so they can provide the right medicine. So as I mentioned, we've been doing our research with Dr. Lillian Duran out of the University of Oregon, and along with other experts, including Doris Baker from the University of Texas in Austin. And so our research has helped us develop our new MCLASS Lectura. And those of you who are familiar with EDEL, this is our new revised version, and we're answering all your wishes for what you wanted to see in the past. So MCLASS Lectura is validated for benchmark, progress monitoring, and dyslexia screening. It's demonstrating full parity with our English assessment, the DIBELS D8. And this is based on 3 years of research and development that we have invested, and we continue to do that research and never stop improving our product to meet the needs of teachers and students. And when paired with the DIBELS 8, Lectura provides support for that biliteracy development, including the support for that cross-linguistic transfer of for students. And as you probably know, a lot of you know, our MCLASS K6 product, both in English and Spanish, are TEA approved for that alternative reading diagnostic tool. It is that single point solution that offers so many opportunities for teachers to help students in their literacy pathways. So how does Lectura reflect that Spanish literacy acquisition? So our extensive research and feedback from stakeholders led us to some key decisions. We want to have that early developmental focus. So we do include que inicio measures that provides that data for students whose skill level is below kindergarten measures. But we want to make sure that you're still getting that data that you need to gather for those students so that you know the next steps. We also have our phonological awareness that now we are scoring in both syllable and phoneme levels, and it's going to give a greater variety and increasingly complex multisyllabic words. And finally, we have our decoding, which measures that letter sound correspondence and that word level reading for a greater face validity. And here our Lectura begins with comprehension at the grade 1. Here you can see where the assessments are giving. You see the skills on the left. You see when we are measuring those skills in both English and in Spanish. And as I mentioned, we start that comprehension assessment at grade 1. And the reason for that is because research states that that reading accuracy in Spanish is not a strong predictor of reading comprehension. So in Spanish, because it is such a transparent language and they have strong decoding skills, students could be reading words very fluently, but not really have good comprehension. So it's important for us to measure that comprehension as their decoding progresses. So that is one of the main differences that we will see in those measures. And in addition, the data that we gather can also include the broader set of skills that we expand into spelling, oral language, vocabulary, and that text reading comprehension. And these measures are available today and will continue to be available to support districts and states with various screening requirements. And here you see the assessments, spelling, oral language, vocabulary, and when they are administered to students. And so for most of you out there, you're familiar with our DIBELS 8th edition in our MCLASS platform, and you know that it is a one-to-one environment with teachers. And this is gentle on the student and gentle on teachers. Students like that time that they have with his teachers. It is 1-minute measures. And so in about 5 to 7 minutes, students are done with their full benchmarks and they're able to return to their seat and get some more reading done. And if they're fortunate enough to have Amplify reading, they can work on some Amplify reading. And the information the teachers get is very clear and transparent. They know what's happening with their class. They have a good intuition of what's happening in their class. So they know what their students' needs are going to be. There are no inferences or assumptions that are made because the teacher was assessing the student face-to-face and knows what they're capable of, which makes it so much nicer than systems where students are sitting in front of a computer and just doing multiple choice, where teachers aren't really sure that they can trust that data. And so Lectura does the same thing. It gives that transparency and clarity and refines that reporting for teachers, and it gives that actionable data that teachers need to see in their classrooms. And if you're familiar, Lectura is going to look the same as MCLASS DIBELS 8th. You will see that a teacher has a device on her side of things. She clicks on it, and again, that can be a touch screen or a mouse, whatever the teacher has available. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you see what students have in front of them. So just like our previous measures in English, the student has a sheet of paper in front of them where they will read to the teacher, and the teacher inputs that data. So very simple to learn this new program. And here's just a quick example of our assessment where we see the teacher and student are together, and you'll see the screen where the teacher is going to be tapping. She's already given the student the instructions and giving them an opportunity to practice, to be clear that the student knows what she is looking for. So let's just take a quick look at this assessment.
Aquí está tu primera palabra. Haga. Haga. Húmedo. Húmedo. Alta. Alta. Afilado. Afilado. Equipo. Equipo.
So that was just a quick look at it. And again, if you're familiar with MCLASS and even with our EDEL, you will see that it's very similar. It's going to feel very comfortable for teachers to learn this new Lectura. And teachers, I know, are excited that they are going to have their syllables being addressed. So let's look at this and what it looks like on our data. So when we do those benchmarking, then we're going to get that actionable data right away, just like you have been getting with your reading. So teachers will click on their box and immediately they get this class summary of their students. They can see the the color coding is like it is for Dibbles now. We have that blue marking for above benchmark. The teacher can see how her students are performing in all areas and gives her an idea of where she might need to address certain needs as a whole class. For example, under this decoding, you can see that there are many students who are struggling in that area. So maybe she wants to do some whole class lessons for that, to address that. But as you scroll down, just like in our English version, you will see that you have all your students listed here with their composite scores and with the skills and measures listed up here at the top. And most importantly, you get to see that what the profile looks for every student. So here you have Gabriel, and he has a nice benchmark score. It looks good. But on the right-hand side, you see that he still has some areas of need that we need to address. So again, the system continues to be very intuitive and gives us granular data, a very specific, individualized profile for all our students. And when we click on any one of these measures, like I'm going to do right now in our decoding, now I get a view of that probe that is printable for teachers if they need it for any reason. But here she can review what they did during that assessment, how he performed, and she can look at that and make any assessments that she needs to do. And she can compare these to his beginning of year measures as well. So that is really a special part of our program, that you have this data that's there and the teacher can compare those measures. And the real magic in our program is always this instruction tab. So when we go into the instructions and I go to students, here I see all my students listed, and we see their composite scores. And more importantly, just like we see here with Gabriel, we see what he can do, what he needs to work on. And here are all the observed patterns that he has in his learning. And right below that, we have activities that are associated with those observed patterns so that we can address his needs specifically. And this can be done on a one-to-one basis with this student. And then the real exciting part is the grouping. When you go to the groups, now I see that my entire class has been grouped based on their most foundational needs. And not only do we take care of our students who are needing that most intense support, but we also support students who are working on their comprehension and their fluency skills, because we want to make sure that in our system that we continue to help all students grow in their literacy and their foundational skills. Here we will see that we see Gabriel in group 4. And so he is paired up with Peter because they have similar needs. And it tells us what they can do and what they need to work on. And right here is where the teacher has the action that needs to take place. She goes to see activities. And now she sees the pedagogy in this group and what's happening, why we do what we do. And now she sees the observed patterns that these two students share with each other. And below that, she sees all the activities that are associated with those skills so that she can address them immediately, so she can take quick action. And here's an example of one of those lessons, these activities. You can see how beautifully scripted it is. It gives her the skill that they're working on, what the goal is for this lesson. If she needs materials to prepare for this lesson, they're right here, ready to click and open up so that she can print them out and get them ready for this lesson for their students. And it's a completely scripted lesson plan that the teacher has, that paraprofessionals can easily administer as well. And it gives her guidance on the right-hand side for anything she may need to do to make that lesson more engaging. This is in a slow release model of I do, we do, you do. And many of the lessons give extra supports that the teacher can give to those students who might be struggling in the group a little bit and need some extra help. And even some lessons give some challenges that the teachers can provide for some students who are really catching on and seem to be moving forward. So that is always an exciting piece of the program. Now, what really makes the program different is this dual language tab. So when we click on this dual language tab, now we see how students are performing in both English and Spanish. And we see that information side by side, not separate, but together. With the teacher sees how Gabriel is developing in his English skills. We can see the areas where he is doing a little better than in other areas. But in Spanish, he's on track. He's really doing a nice job. We see those areas of need. But most importantly, the teacher is going to get information on how to support Gabriel's biliteracy development. It gives her information on how he's performing in both of these areas, what she can do with that student to help him. It gives guidance along the way for each language. And it even gives lessons that are going to provide assistance for that cross-linguistic transfer for this student. So just a truly invaluable tool. And this is going to work in any kind of classroom setting, dual language, bilingual classroom. So any setting that you have, it's going to be able to enrich that environment and give teachers that action that they need to help their students. And finally, just like in English, we have our Home Connect letter that is in parent-friendly language. This is beautiful because it helps parents remember that they are partners in the learning of their students. And it tells them how their students are performing in each of these measures, what we want to see their students do so that they can continue to improve in their literacy. And it even gives the teachers, the parents, ideas on what they can do at home. Usually these are quick little fun game-like activities that the parents can work with their students to help them, and also encourages the idea with parents and students that learning happens everywhere and at any time, not just in the classroom. So, and that's an example of our cross-linguistic transfer information. So that's a look at what the platform is going to look like. Again, if you're familiar with all of our MCLASS products, you will see that it looks very much like our DIBELS program, and that is the most exciting piece, I believe, for everyone. So you see that Lectura is a data-driven instructional cycle. It's a high-quality Spanish language assessment. It provides that valid benchmarking, progress monitoring, and dyslexia screening. It gives us that reporting that's immediate, transparent, and granular. And it gives us the action. The now what do we do after I have all this data? It gives us this beautiful instructions to where we can address the students' needs and start closing those gaps for students in both English and Spanish. And so Lectura brings the parity to English assessment that biliteracy educators have been expecting. So we've discussed that Lectura measures reflect Spanish literacy development. In addition, teachers, leaders, and assessors who use MCLASS DIBELS 8 will feel right at home with the MCLASS Lectura as it sits on the same platform, and administering the assessment is gentle on students with that short one-to-one observational measure, and it's easy for teachers. Teachers will know exactly where to click and how to navigate on our assessment, reporting, and instruction because it's the same platform. And lastly, the instructional tools and resources are on par with what is provided in English. There's student grouping, lessons, instructional observations, and caregiver letters for both English and Spanish. And so with all of this, we have leveraged the assets students already bring and identified exactly what they need, and we help teachers to provide the right medicine. So I hope you're excited to dive into MCLASS Lectura. We're so proud and happy to bring it to you. And so now we will open it up to any preguntas we may have out there.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Roberta. We do have a couple questions. One is a request. It says, can you show the cross-linguistic transfer example again? It went by too fast for me to catch.
All right, let's see.
I want to see if you can find that. That would be great. And then we've got a couple other questions after that one. If you have
Okay.
any additional
Yeah.
questions, you can pop those in the Q&A and we'll get to all of them that we can in our time together.
Yeah. This is not a real live demo, so I'm going to try to figure out how we get to that because I was even surprised when I got that. I can't seem to get back to that one. I'm sorry, but let me click on that. Maybe it'll open up. There it is. Sorry. So it's right there. I'll just try to scroll up a little slowly.
And Faith, let us know if you want to get some more information on that or see more of it. Just let me know in the Q&A and we'll have your account executive follow up with you. No problem.
See the vignettes for the English dominant speakers and the Spanish dominant speakers.
This is what they ooh and ah about.
And the tips and examples of how the teacher can address those needs for her students.
So Faith, if you want to just let me know in the Q&A or the chat if that suffices, if that gave you what you needed. Okay. Another question was, will students have the practice piece that they do on their own, like the English has now? That's a yes, correct?
The practice piece, you mean the instructions before the assessment measure?
Yes, I think that's what she means.
Yes, yes, yes. The teacher, just like in English, the measures are very scripted. So just like they have that little Mr. Say, and the teacher gives the instructions with fidelity for every student every time. And she does give an example of what the student is supposed to do and how they're supposed to perform on that measure.
Okay, great. Here's another one. Can we see what students will see when they practice? And then also a second part to that, do you have a link that we can use to explore the student practice platform? Not yet. We don't have that link yet, but is there something you can show, Roberta?
I guess I'm not clear what they mean by practice.
Okay.
The students don't need to
practice,
practice the measures.
By practice piece, I meant the computer iPad part that the students do on their own. That's what
Okay.
meant from the.
So you're talking about the spelling and the dyslexia screeners that the students do on their own side. And Maze is also in English. They do that in the comprehension piece. So students don't usually get to practice with that. We don't provide, there's nothing there that they can practice with, but that's why when you administer those assessments, we guide that you do them in small groups, in groups of 5 or smaller, so that you can help students navigate that technology as they're logging in and working with that. The only kind of practice you could do is that at kindergarten, instead of waiting for to do the spelling measure at EOY, you might want to administer it at MOY. And at first grade, of course, they should have already had experience with that. But at first grade, instead of just waiting for that MOY to give the data to the state, you might want to administer at BOY as well. So that way they have experience and they feel comfortable with the platform. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, yeah, let us know. Just put it in either the chat or the Q&A if you need some more clarification. We're almost out of time. So if you have other questions going in, know that we'll follow up with you. I think we have time for one more. Someone asked, let's see, will the students be assessed? Will we be assessing students, each student in both languages? There's a great piece in the FAQ that addresses that. It really depends on your model and what you're doing for dual language in your particular situation, whether they be tested in both languages. Is that sort of the right answer, Roberta?
Yes, and what I need to say that if you want this dual language tab to function the way it is, or to give you the most data, you will need to assess the students in both English and Spanish in order to get this piece and start working on those cross-linguistic pieces.
Okay. And then we do have one in kindergarten. Does the test eventually move to identifying phonemes, or does it only test syllables?
In kindergarten, I believe it's going to do both
Okay.
the phonemes and the syllables.
Okay. We'll be sure and double check
Yes.
that and get back to you for sure. We were under the impression that Amplify Lectura was a computer program for students to practice the skills assessed.
No, that
it's synonymous with MCLASS.
right. In Amplify in our company, anything that has MCLASS in front of it is an assessment piece. And of course, we have the lessons, but those are teacher-led lessons that we just showed you. If you're looking for a computer-based program, that would be Amplify Reading. But currently, Amplify Reading is only offered in English. It does have Spanish supports in there. So there are, especially students who are emerging with their English and starting to work on those skills, Amplify Reading is still a very good option for those students. But right now we don't have that.
Right, and it's coming in Spanish, most definitely.
Working on that. Yeah, that's in the works.
Okay, I think we're out of time, and I want to be respectful of your time. If you asked a question that didn't get answered, no, we will get back in touch with you. Whether you put it in the chat or the Q&A, we'll make sure that you get those answers back. And the FAQ document that's in your follow-up email with the recording may very well answer some of the questions as well. So thank you so much for joining, and good luck with finishing up the rest of your school year. Take care.
Gracias. Adios.
Bye-bye.
Bye.